Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another episode of the Nap Bros podcast. Unfortunately, Andrew is unavailable to join me today just because he's got life and things that happen and life. So I'll be holding down the fort today and giving you guys all the fun updates. You can skip around. I'm going to, in the description below, whether you're watching on YouTube, in the description below, or on your podcasting app, there will be places where you can click to skip around if you're not interested in listening to everything. First up, we'll do some NFL news. Then we'll do a bunch of fantasy stuff that has to do with our fantasy league. And then after that, I'll give you the breakdown of who we think that in fantasy. So there'll be stuff about our fantasy league, and then there'll be actually like looking at the fantasy footballers. They have the Footie Awards, which are different variations, or not different variations, but different crap. I do not know how to say this. Different categories. That's the word. Yes, I'm an English teacher. I know how to speak English, of course. But we'll be looking at different categories that they present and talking about those different categories to the best of my ability. Some of them I'm not great on. That being said, also, there will be at the very end, and there'll be a section where you can find it. At the very end, there will be Andrew and I picking our Super Bowl picks, our playoff picks, and our Super Bowl picks. I'll just be giving you what Andrew said, and then I will be going through my selection and giving you what I think is going on, why I think in a certain way that I think. Based on those. So if you want to skip around, go ahead and skip around. No problems, no issues. But I do appreciate you being here, and let's get into the show. First up, NFL news, just some ideas, just some things that are going on. All right. So in the NFL today, it looks like Lamar Jackson is still suffering from some knee issues, and so he will be out for the playoff game between them and the Cincinnati Bengals. Tua Tagovailoa is also out for the playoff game, and that is Miami going up against Buffalo. Needless to say, that is really bad for those teams, for both Baltimore and Miami. Unfortunately for them, their star players are out, and I think that will have a massive effect on the games. That being said, in other news, Derek Carr is being shopped. The Raiders do seem to be wanting to get out of his contract. I think he signed, I don't know exactly when he re-signed a deal with them, but I think it was only like a year or 2 years ago. And this is going to be some serious implications for Davante Adams, as well as Josh Jacobs, as well as possibly Tom Brady. There are rumors going around that Tom Brady is going to join back up with Josh McDaniels. And possibly, I mean, you've got great weapons there in Darren Waller, in Devonta Smith. I'm sorry, not Devonta Smith. Devontae, that's his name. Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, if they decide to continue holding him, which who wouldn't? And even some new blood, and like Mac Hollins and Hunter Renfrow. Well, Hunter Renfrow is not new, but Mac Hollins is. That being said, they are doing some shopping, trying to get out of that contract. Other great news: Damar Hamlin is out of the hospital, which is fantastic. That's great news. Really great for the Bills. Really great for the NFL. Great to see the kind of support that he got being in the hospital and stuff like that from fans, as well as people who really don't care about football but care about people. So that was awesome. DeAndre Hopkins, the Arizona Cardinals look like they are going to try and possibly trade him. Personally, as a Tennessee Titans fan, I think that would be great if we could get him. And also potentially I don't want to say a better quarterback, but yeah, theoretically a better quarterback, or another quarterback that we can have in there. Tom Brady, if you want to, you can come, please. Anyway, Odell Beckham Jr. in a little bit of trouble, based on some body cam footage. Had some issues on an airplane. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but it kind of seems like OBJ will at least not be coming back to the NFL for some time. Definitely don't want this kind of like overpowering your locker room, especially this deep into or getting into the playoffs and stuff like that. Now, if there's like a major injury to one of your star wide receivers, then I can see that happening. But if you've got your if you've got all of your wide receivers, I don't see OBJ being a part of your team. Let's try this again. In first place, as the champion of the 2022 fantasy football season, Heartbeat, Trent's team, Heartbeat. In second place, Nathan with Better Than Scott. In third place, Andrew with Don't Take the Bateman. In fourth place, Jessie with London Silly Nannies. In fifth place, yours truly with Back in the Hot Seat. In sixth place, Jacob with LaMarvel Universe. Seventh place was Ryan with Let's Ride. Eighth place was Michael with the Leprechauns. Ninth place was Cody with Shroot Farms. 10th place, Matt with the Water Boys. 11th place, Adam with Biggest Loser. And 12th place, last place of them all, Scott with Scott Stotts. So that being said, something that kind of like something that was interesting to me, there are currently 3 original fantasy football players that have been here since 2016 who have not won a championship. And so that is Andrew, Jacob, and Cody. That being said, both Jessie and Trent are fairly new guys. Trent, I think, has been in the league for 3 years. Jessie, I'm not exactly sure. But they are new guys, and they have both won a championship now, officially. So, yeah, that's some interesting stuff for you guys. I wanted to go in and I wanted to see how the final rankings ranked versus the draft grade that Yahoo gave all of us. And so I went in and I found out that it's that, again, something to be mindful of. The draft isn't ultimately where you are going to win. And even if you get like a high draft grade, it doesn't necessarily matter because the way that it turned out. So Trent's team winning the championship, Heartbeat, came in third for the draft order. Nathan's team came in 6th as far as the draft grade. Andrew's team came in 7th, and I'm just going down the list. Andrew's team came in 7th. Jesse's team came in 9th. My team came in last in 12th place. Jacob's team came in 10th. Ryan's team came in 5th. Michael's team came in 4th. Cody's team was in 2nd. Matt's team was in 11th place. Adams was in 8th. And Scott actually was in 1st place as far as the draft grade goes. So, again, to be mindful, yes, you have these fantasy experts who are planning everything that they can at the beginning of the semester, or the beginning of the season. However, they can't predict exactly who's going to do well and stuff. And yes, it's kind of nice to sit there and be like, yeah, I came in first or I came in whatever. But the draft is not where you win your championship, no matter how much it is. The thing is, and we'll get into transactions. We'll get into what people needed to do to win the championship or to get into the playoffs. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I wanted to do that for you. As far as final rankings in relationship to draft order, okay? So did draft order, meaning if you picked first, how did you do? If you picked last, how did you do? Does draft order actually matter per se? And so I will give you this. We'll do it again from Trent all the way down to Scott and just give you where they ranked as far as, or where they were in the draft order. So Heartbeat, Trent actually picked 3rd. Nathan actually picked 9th. Andrew picked 2nd. Okay. Jessie picked 4th. I picked 1st. Okay. Jacob picked 10th. Ryan was 7th. Michael was 8th. Cody was 11th. Matt was 5th. Adam was 6th. And Scott was 12th. So it would seem of the 6 teams that made it into the playoffs, 4 of them were in the top 4. It was 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so there is some correlation. Nevertheless, the second place team, so Nathan's team, was the 9th pick. Okay, and Jacob's team was the 10th place, or Jacob's team, which is in 6th place, was the 10th pick. And so something to be mindful of. It seems like the first few picks are great. And one of the things that I will do is I'll go back for next week. I'll go back and I'll give you how it's gone over the course of the seasons and see if this is something that happens regularly or if it's just this season that it looks like the first 4 picks get into the playoffs. So with that also being the case, because I wanted to present this to you, something to be mindful of. It does also matter. Your draft does matter. I don't want to say it doesn't matter. It can help you and it can kill you, but also transactions throughout the year are going to benefit you or hurt you. So I wanted to present to you some ideas or to kind of go through and show you what was good, what wasn't good. So again, just to kind of start out. So Trent's team, picked 3rd. He made 51 moves throughout the season. So 51 moves is just basically 51 transactions, whether that's adding people, dropping people, trading people, 51. Okay. Nathan, however, picked 9th, only did 6 moves. So got into 2nd place by only doing 6 moves the entire season. Okay. So a massive difference in that. So 51 to 6. Now, had Nathan gone in and gotten done more moves, could he have potentially won the championship? Who knows? Don't know. Can't say one way or the other. But, just to kind of show you the disparity of it. Andrew's team, 3rd place, had 26 moves. Okay. Did 26 moves in order to get into 3rd place. Okay. Even though he picked 2nd, he still had 26 moves. So better than Nathan picked 9th, 6 moves. Andrew picked 2nd, had 26 moves. Jessie, okay, picked 4th and only had 4 moves the entire season. And so didn't do a whole lot of moving, but also we kind of saw, especially as the season went on, because again, London Silly Nannies, Jesse's team, was in 1st place for a while. Then Heartbeat and London Silly Nannies switched places right there at the end. But then Jesse's team just kind of tapered off. Now, Jesse, here's the biggest thing. Here's what I think is the biggest tell. Jesse didn't spend any of his waiver budget. Now, Jesse, really quick, just a shout out to you. Nice job. I want to know why you didn't spend any money. Let me know in the comments below or send me a message in the group or comment if you're listening on the podcast. Let me know why didn't you do any, why didn't you pay any money for waiver pickups? I'm just curious. I just want to know because I mean, again, you had a great team, but scoring wise, it wasn't the best. Points against you just happened to be a lot less than what you were producing. Or not a lot less, but somewhat less. Okay, so I'm just kind of curious. That being said, my team came in 5th. I was a 1st pick, and I had 42 moves done throughout the season. So it looks like Trent and I were just going nuts. Scott was also going nuts because he needed to, obviously. But that was, we were the top 3 producers or top 3 transaction people or teams. And so we'll get to Scott in a little bit. The Marvel Universe. So Jacob's team. He picked 10th and only had 6 moves the entire season. Personally, I think that was probably why he ended up falling off. Besides the fact that obviously Lamar tanked his team, and that is a challenging thing definitely to come back from, but that's part of the thing about doing trades, doing transactions, if you get those done and picking up waiver wires, for sure, to kind of cover your butt. Ryan's team, Let's Ride, picked 7th, ended up 7th, which is actually kind of interesting. Picked 7th, ended up 7th, actually started to kind of he and Michael's team actually ended up really starting to blast off there towards the end, really, really well. But Ryan was in the seventh picker, and he ended up having 21 moves throughout the season. Yeah, that didn't help him to get into the playoffs, but it did help him to secure the seventh place in the league. And the same with Michael's team. Michael definitely started horribly, but ended up doing better. Ended up doing 19 moves in the league, 19 transactions, and having picked in eighth place. That's also interesting. He also got eighth place, so he picked eighth and he got eighth. So that's kind of interesting. But he did do 19 moves. Cody, what did Cody? Cody picked 11th. Ended up doing 16 moves and got ninth place. So again, just kind of this idea of doing moves. Now, Water Boys. This is something interesting, Matt. I'm not exactly sure. Matt picked fifth place, or in fifth, the fifth position. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. Fifth position. Matt picked fifth position. Came out with a 7-7 record, but did 9 transactions, but didn't spend any of his FAAB. And again, I'm not exactly sure why. Now, granted, I see that London Silly Nannies again, like Jessie apparently did a good enough draft to where he didn't have to spend as much money throughout the draft and could very easily, or I shouldn't say very easily, but was able to actually get his get what he needed done. And so that was impressive for sure. But then, like, obviously it didn't get him ultimately to the championship, which is where things really matter. So yeah, Matt, I do want to know why you didn't spend any money. I'd also like to know from you. And so you and Jessie, I want to know, comments below, why did you guys not, or in the review, why did you guys not spend any of your FAAB? I'm just curious. That really surprises me. Then you have Adam's team, came in 11th place, but Adam picked 6th position and only had 6 transactions throughout the year. I think that's one of the things. I mean, again, I assume you guys have lives and there are other things that are more important, and that's fine. I get that. I totally understand that. There's no problem with that. Only 6 transactions and ended up in 11th place. Like I don't want to say it makes sense, but it kind of does. Now the really interesting one, probably the most interesting one, is Scott's team. Ended up in last place, had 61 transactions. And this is where, for instance, Trent's team having 51 transactions, my team having 42 transactions, and Scott's team having 61 transactions. There are good transactions and there are bad transactions. I'm not saying I was privy to all good transactions. Heaven knows my Jalen Hurts for Jonathan Taylor. Not a smart move on my part, but it happens. My brother was convincing enough. And he's my brother. I mean, it's kind of difficult to not try to help him. But anyway, I digress. With that being the case, also, the fact that Scott had 61 moves, but ended up still in last place is surprising. And again, pick 12. So there's not really like a rhyme or reason, but it is something to be mindful of, to do more transactions, to do things, to move things around. Now, also the other thing as well, it does seem like those who spent some money at least from their FAAB did better. Now, again, Jessie is the anomaly, but Trent ended the season with $33 in his FAAB. Nathan ended it with 66. Andrew ended it with 5. Obviously, Jessie with 100. I ended it with 0. And Jacob ended it with 65. Ryan had 40 left. Michael had 0 left. Cody had 0 left. Matt had 100 left. Adam had 85 and Scott had 0 left. And so kind of seeing, I mean, it does also, it's not even that. It's like if you're bottom rung or if you're on the low end, or for instance, in my case, if you're trying to not make up, but if you're trying to get yourself into the playoffs and you're not a very secure playoff contender, definitely spending the money to get up there is essential for sure. So I kind of wanted to go into like our draft versus the end of season, meaning like who drafted or who got drafted in what the first 2 rounds, just looking at the first 2 rounds. Because again, the first 2 rounds are definitely the most important because they could either help your season or tank your season, depending on where your strength and your power come from. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this to begin with. I'm not going to go through all the players that should have been picked up. We'll do that. Andrew and I will probably do that next week. All I want to do is I just want to present to you who got picked up in our league, first and second rounds, and then where they ended up. So at the 101, yours truly, I drafted Christian McCaffrey. Now, this was, if you remember at the beginning of the season, it was insane. Like how I didn't pick up Jonathan Taylor, why I didn't pick up Jonathan Taylor. People don't know. People were surprised, but I thought it was Christian McCaffrey's time. I thought after 2 years of kind of like nothing, surely he would come back. And he did in a big way. Now, granted, he didn't give me like number 1 RB status, but he was 6th highest overall, including quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. And he was the running back 2. Okay. Still great. Still awesome to have on my team. Still incredibly beneficial to my team. At the 102, Andrew picked up Jonathan Taylor. Okay. And so with that, Jonathan Taylor actually ended the season at 109, RB 34. He did go on IR in week 15, but that's not anything. I mean, there's just Jonathan Taylor was just terrible. And trust me, for somebody who traded for Jonathan Taylor, it was a bad move on my part, great move on Andrew's part, but definitely one of those challenging things for sure. Definitely not, again, like definitely tanked, definitely did horribly for Andrew's team and then for my team. So we both got a little bit. At the 103, Trent picked up Justin Jefferson, who ended up 8th on the season and the wide receiver 1. So great pickup there for sure. That being said, the 104 was Cooper Kupp, picked up by London Silly Nanny's Jessie at the 4. Cooper Kupp again ended up 75th and still wide receiver 25. Not in the top 2 that you would want, but imagining that since he went on IR in week 9, what he could have done if he had the other 8 weeks that he could have played. But ended up wide receiver 25 on the season. And yet still London Silly Nannies was able, or Jesse was still able to take his team to the playoffs. Just like Andrew was able to take his team to the playoffs. I was able to take mine to the playoffs, even though I had a crappy Jonathan Taylor. Even though I traded away Jalen Hurts for that man. I digress. Then we've got at the 105, Matt picked up Jamar Chase. Now, Jamar Chase kind of hurt because he was still playing, but he ended up 43 on the overall and wide receiver 11. So to pick him up at the 5, the biggest challenge there is this massive, or not massive drop off, but a drop off. Like, he's still a great player, of course, but when you're thinking that he's going to be as great as he was the year before, it just seemed like the regression was there. It was going to happen. He wasn't going to be worth that pick. Again, it's like 50% knowledge of what you've seen before and 50% luck for sure in this league. Then at the 106, Adam was able to pick up Austin Eckler. Okay. Now, Austin Eckler did awesome because he is awesome. Excellent. He was 5th overall, and that was behind 4 quarterbacks. Running back 1. Okay. So fantastic, amazing. Such a great pickup there. Definitely worth that pick. Then we have Ryan picking up Najee Harris at the 7, at the 107. Unfortunately, this was just a bad pickup. 42nd overall, running back 14. Definitely not worth that because again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a running back 1, but instead that's a running back 2, right? So you're looking at anything from a running back 1 to running back 12. But even at the 7, you're actually hoping for a running back 1 through 7 or 1 through 5 or 1 through 4, somewhere in there. So Najee Harris definitely did not provide that. Could he potentially next year? Sure, as everybody kind of gets adjusted to the system, but who knows? At the 108, Michael picked up Dalvin Cook. Pretty decent pickup. He did end up 31st overall, running back 8. If it were all running backs, it would be good. I mean, again, it is a number 1 running back. It is very useful to have Dalvin Cook, but for such a cost, it kind of hurt a little bit. Not so much to where we could classify it as a bust. Nothing like Jonathan Taylor or Cooper Kupp or even Najee Harris, even Jamar Chase to an extent. Again, Jamar Chase and Najee Harris aren't bust, but they're kind of like bad. At the 109, Nathan picked up Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry was fantastic all year long. And ended up 13th overall, running back 4. Definitely a great pickup there. Then Jacob at the 110 was able to pick up Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs ended up 22nd on the year, wide receiver 4. Decent pickup there. Not horrible. Obviously there were 3 other wide receivers that were better, but having that was definitely a powerful thing, especially at the beginning of the year. Kind of tapered off towards the second part of the year, but yeah. At the 111, Cody decided to pick up Joe Mixon. Okay. He ended up 39th overall and running back 13. Again, when you're picking in your first round, you're trying to get an RB1 to 12, preferably an RB1 to 5, especially if there are other wide receivers or tight ends that go off the board first. But Joe Mixon returned a value of RB13, which is not a great value. Then we get to Scott picking DeAndre Swift at the 112, who ended up 71st overall and running back 22. And a lot of that was issues at the beginning, injury, and then towards the end, even when he got back in, Jamal Williams at that time had already taken off with a lot of points and being worth more, or being worth not wanting to put DeAndre Swift in there. I mean, it was so bad that actually Jamal Williams actually turned into the running back 10 for the season, as where DeAndre Swift was running back 22. Now, Scott did pick up Jamal Williams. Great job. Or maybe he traded for him. Or maybe he traded DeAndre Swift away. I forget exactly what happened. But yes, Scott ended up with him. And so smart move there. Then at the 201, Scott picked up Travis Kelce, who ended up 21st overall. So again, that's above Stephon Diggs, right? And that is 11 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, and 3 wide receivers who did better than him. Let me read you off the list of names that come after him. Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, CeeDee Lamb, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, Tony Pollard, Russell Wilson, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Jalen Waddle, Jamal Williams, Derek Carr, Ramondre Stevenson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Miles Sanders, Joe Mixon, Devonta Smith, Amari Cooper, Najee Harris, Jamar Chase, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk, Marcus Mariota, Tyler Lockett, Travis Etienne, and Terry McLaurin to round out the top 50. So Travis Kelce was in another world by himself. Travis Kelce was like getting a top tier running back or wide receiver. And this is huge because this was incredibly beneficial to Cody. So with that, it was just one of those things when Scott decided to trade him. Not exactly the best move. Understandable, especially because Scott was suffering badly. I think started this season 0-5 or 0-6 and was desperate for a win. Desperate. Then at the 202, Cody picked up Saquon Barkley. Great pickup. He was 24th ranked, running back 6. And so a fantastic pickup there, especially with previous years of injuries and stuff like that. At the 203, Jacob picked up Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones ended the season as the number 32 overall, running back number 9. Okay pickup. Not a great one. I mean, again, it is a top tier running back, one that you want, but that early on, a little challenging. But having Stephon Diggs and then Aaron Jones, pretty decent 1 and 2 pickup for Jacob, and they definitely helped out. Obviously, as the year went on, Aaron Jones had less work and A.J. Dillon had more. Then at the 204, Nathan picked up Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara was definitely not on the top that he needed to be. But again, this is something to be mindful of. Again, you're not. It's not necessarily where you're drafting that or how you draft. How you draft is important, but also being mindful that you can make moves and it's okay to make changes as you go along. Because Alvin Kamara was 57th overall and a running back 18. A terrible pick in the second round. A horrible pick. Nevertheless, Nathan still made it in the championship. Okay. Then Michael picked Devontae Adams at the 205. Devontae Adams was 17th overall, wide receiver number 3. Great pickup, especially there in the second round. Ryan picked Leonard Fournette at the 206. He was 51st overall, running back 16. Not exactly a great pickup per se there. And one of the things that kind of gave him problems because of the fact that he had picked up Najee Harris and then Leonard Fournette really caused his team to suffer poorly. So in those first 2 picks, if you get 2 bangers, 2 amazing guys, great job. And then like you've got a solid foundation. If you get 1 good guy and then 1 crappy guy, then your team has a decent chance. If you get 2 stinkers or 2 relatively bad guys that don't turn out the value, then it seems like there's going to be an issue later on. So kind of to present at the 207, Adam picked up Michael Pittman Jr., who ended up 72 overall and wide receiver 23. Now, again, going back to what Adam picked up. Adam picked up the number 1 running back in Austin Eckler and then picked up the 23rd wide receiver in the second spot. Again, is there a way for him to have come back? Of course, but that's also why you need to do transactions, right? Matt at the 208 picked up Deebo Samuel. He was 99th overall, wide receiver 36. Terrible pickup. Again, it's not that, actually, I shouldn't say it's a terrible pickup. It's a terrible value for what you get. Deebo Samuel, you were expecting the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, possibly a top 12. Didn't even give you a top 24 wide receiver output. Almost didn't give you like a flex output for a wide receiver. And so that being the case, looking at that, and then also that there's Jamar Chase. So again, a rough start to the draft. Again, Jamar Chase, not terrible, but also not worth the first round pick. Then you've got Jessie picking up Ezekiel Elliott at the 209. So again, ranked 59th overall, running back 19. Again, not a great pickup, but still okay. And especially with picking up Cooper Kupp and having a great Cooper Kupp for 8 weeks, or we'll say great for 7 weeks, definitely helped that out. But then, Cooper Kupp dropped off. Ezekiel Elliott, okay. But again, this is where transactions come in. This is where it is important to have those transactions. Okay. Then Trent picking up Nick Chubb at 210, who ranked 20th overall, running back number 5. So here Trent has Justin Jefferson, number 1 wide receiver, and Nick Chubb, number 5 running back. Great pickups overall, especially in the first 2 rounds. Then Andrew picking up at the 211, Mike Evans, who ended up 54th overall, wide receiver 16. Again, a challenging pickup, and especially when Andrew's team overall having Jonathan Taylor, who ended up garbage, and then Mike Evans, who overall was pretty garbage, except for that last game that seemed to matter only to getting into 3rd place. But with that, that's kind of one of those things about needing those transactions, needing to move pieces in order to be able to have a chance again to get into the playoffs. Because once you get into the playoffs, that's all that matters. Getting to the playoffs is what matters. If you get there, then you have the chance to actually excel and go beyond it. That's what we play for, at least for the majority of the league, is just get to the playoffs. Now, at the 212, I personally, I was heartbroken about this because I was thinking he was going to do great things, but I picked up Javonte Williams, the running back for Denver, who ended up 304 total and running back 84 because he ended up on IR in week 4. Terrible pickup. Now, also one of the reasons why I decided to trade for Jonathan Taylor in order to get Jonathan Taylor on my team to have 2 great running backs, or at least what I thought were great running backs, to have hopefully 2 great running backs on my team. But yeah, it didn't pan out for me as much as I had hoped. All right, I want to get into the Footie Awards from the Fantasy Footballers. Now, I will say overall, I'm not entirely sure how great or terrible these things were, but I do kind of want to get into them and kind of talk through them, especially where they were in the season or just different things. So, number 1, performance of the year. So, which single season performance was the most impressive of the year? So, in week 2, Tua Tagovailoa against Baltimore got 38.86 points in half PPR. He went 36 for 50. For 469 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Yes. Is that right? Yes. Yeah. Justin Fields in week 9 against Miami got 42.72 points. He threw 17 for 28 for 123 yards and 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Ran 15 times for 178 yards and a touchdown. Then you have Joe Mixon, also in week 9 versus Carolina, got 53.1 points. He had 22 rushes for 153 yards and 4 touchdowns, plus 5 targets, caught 4 of them for 58 yards and a touchdown. In week 12, you had Josh Jacobs versus Seattle, got 45.3 points. He ran 33 times for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns, and had 6 catches for 74 yards. Mike Evans in week 17 versus Carolina had 43.7 points. He had 10 catches for 270 yards and 3 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs in week 2 against Tennessee, 38.8 points. He had 12 catches for 148 yards and 3 points. And then TJ Hawkinson in week 4 versus Seattle had 35.9 points, 8 catches for 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, based on where it was in the season, based on who did it, part of me, I kind of want to choose Josh Jacobs because I remember Andrew's team blowing up that week and him needing that score from Josh Jacobs in order to win his week. but it's really hard to not choose Joe Mixon in week 9. Because, like, to me, week 2, week 4, even week 17, like, it's hard not to go with Mike Evans because of the fact that if you had him, especially in the championship, he just destroyed the other team, hands down, bar none. And Andrew definitely, with Mike Evans, Andrew definitely had that victory without even needing to have a quarterback, which was just incredibly crazy. But it's very difficult because, like, Mike Evans didn't really like that single season performance. If you had him in the championship, then yeah, it really mattered. But with, like, Joe Mixon's 53.1 points, it's really hard to get away from that in week 9. And it's really hard to get away from the 45.3 from Josh Jacobs in week 12. It's really difficult to choose somebody like one of those, because especially when those guys blow up and can cover zeros. So give me the Joe Mixon performance in week 9. Just, 5 touchdowns total. Ridiculous. Then they have, for the second part, Fantasy Reapers Man of the Year. So which player's painful injury hurt fantasy managers the most? Keenan Allen, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, Darren Waller, or Javonte Williams. Here's where I'm going to say I think Jonathan Taylor hurt the most. Because, like, here's the reason why. Breece Hall, when he got injured, almost instantly injured reserve, done for the year. Cooper Kupp, when he got hurt, done instantaneously. It hurt that game for sure, but he was done. You weren't trying to balance or juggle, like, figure out, well, is Cooper Kupp going to be in? Is he a game time decision? Is he going to play? You didn't have to guess that. Javonte Williams, same thing. As somebody who owned him, injured, IR, done. Cool, great. Jonathan Taylor, like, even Keenan Allen, when he was out, he was out. There wasn't any, like, maybe, no, who knows, maybe possibly. Darren Waller, I'm not sure. I think there were times where he was out. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Darren Waller, when he was out, he was out. He was done. There wasn't any, like, maybe not. But Jonathan Taylor, sometimes he was on, sometimes he was off, sometimes he was in, sometimes he was out. And he gave you great games at times, but then he also gave you crappy games. Like week 1, 25.5. Week 2, 6.8. Week 3, 10.6. Week 4, 2.8. 0, 0. Then 12, 5.6. 0, 23.3. 14.9. 17.3. 11.8. You're like, oh, okay, great. He seems to be getting back. And then comes out in Minnesota and lays a dud at 1.8. And then it's like, oh, okay, great. The problem is with Jonathan Taylor is you had to play him. That's the problem. You had to play him if he had a chance of getting in. If he had a chance of getting in, even if he gave you crap, like 5 points or 2 points or 6 points, even if he gave you crap, you still had to put him in because he cost so much. Take it from somebody who had to do it. I had to do it. All right. Number 3, the Poopiest Pants Award. So despite high expectations, this player let down fantasy managers over and over again. So Justin Herbert, ADP was 3.1 or 3.11 or at the 311. His ADP was 311. His quarterback 3. Russell Wilson, ADP 701. Quarterback 8. Jonathan Taylor, ADP 101, RB1. Alvin Kamara, ADP 111, RB8. Deebo Samuel, ADP 211, wide receiver 8. DJ Moore, ADP 404, wide receiver 14. Allen Robinson, ADP 504, wide receiver 22. Kyle Pitts, ADP 308, tight end 3. This one, it is hard not to go with Jonathan Taylor or even like Justin Herbert. It's a toss-up for me personally between Justin Herbert and Kyle Pitts. Because Justin Herbert, you were getting him hoping that, like, thinking like this guy is magical. And last year he did so great. Like, how could he not do great this year? And yet he ends up quarterback 11. Geno Smith ended up higher than him. And that's preposterous. Not to mention Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, all of them above Justin Herbert. So just the fact that you were anticipating that, and that generally, you got Justin Herbert and you were like, I am solid. I'm good to go. Got a great quarterback. He's going to be amazing. And he gets into the top 12 on the year, but ranks 15th overall average score per week. Like, that's not what you were hoping for. That's not what you were hoping to get. Same with, and you were forced to probably start him. You probably couldn't trade him. Or if you wanted to trade him, you weren't going to get anything good out of him. And then you have Kyle Pitts, who ended up tight end 34 on the season. Like Chigo Okonkwo, the Titans rookie tight end, got 23rd overall. I mean, you're talking about like even Taysom Hill, Evan Ingram, Cole Kmet, Jawan Johnson. Like these guys who you don't really think about in your tight end thoughts. But Kyle Pitts, you were drafting him to get a top 3 tight end, and it didn't work. It didn't happen. And so I would say, here's the thing. I would say Kyle Pitts is probably the Poopiest Pants award because of the fact that when you drafted him, you were drafting him like, because with a quarterback, you can get an okay quarterback later on. Like you could pick up a Daniel Jones later on and have some semblance of being able to put a competent quarterback out on the field. Nevertheless, with Kyle Pitts, with a tight end, yeah, like it took some time for Evan Ingram to finally get in, but you had spent so much on Kyle Pitts. You had spent such capital on Kyle Pitts, and he got you a tight end 34. Gross. Number 4, waiver wire wonder. Which undrafted waiver wire stud was the best signing of the 2022 season? Christian Watson, Geno Smith, Jerick McKinnon, Zay Jones, Justin Fields. Now, for me personally, this is actually really interesting because if I'm not mistaken, Christian Watson, Jerick McKinnon, and Zay Jones, all 3 of those actually really started showing up in the latter part of the season. And like we're talking like week 14, 15, week 13, 12, 13, somewhere in there, started really showing up. But then you have Geno Smith and you have Justin Fields. As somebody who has Geno Smith, I'm more inclined to give it to Geno Smith simply because of the fact that he really did help me get to where I needed to get to. Justin Fields, it seems like Geno Smith wasn't supposed to do anything. Justin Fields, it was anticipated that he is a good quarterback. He is going to be worth a dang. And so like he finally showed it and stuff. But with Geno Smith, everybody was anticipating he's behind Drew Lock. He's going to be garbage. He's not going to be great. Like, what is this ridiculousness? And so the fact that he actually, like, you pick him up, you start him, and he actually does decently. Not wonderful. I mean, he was the 5th quarterback on the season. Not great on as far as like average points because there were some challenges that he had with certain teams, but definitely in my mind, Geno Smith was definitely the waiver wire wonder. All right, so fantasy quarterback of the year. So when factoring in draft position, big game performances, and impact to fantasy teams everywhere, which quarterback deserves fantasy QB of the year? So you got Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Jalen Hurts. Personally, man, I got to give it to Jalen Hurts because he has been electric and amazing and fantastic. And his draft position was much further down the line. Now, Justin Fields came on later on, of course, absolutely. But Jalen Hurts really put in a showing every single week and was definitely worth the 5th round pick that I got, that I did on him. So I'm going to give it to Jalen Hurts. Number 6, fantasy RB of the year. So factoring in draft position, big game performances, and impact to fantasy teams everywhere, which running back deserves the footy for Fantasy RB of the Year? Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, or Austin Eckler? Now, it is really hard for me not to give this to Tony Pollard just because of the fact that he was so late in our draft. He came at the 85th, 81st pick, so in the 7th round to Nathan's team. And then even Josh Jacobs was the 50th pick, and so in the 5th round. And so it is difficult for me to choose, but yeah, maybe I got to give it to Josh Jacobs just because of the fact that he was the one. Like Tony Pollard, you weren't 100% sure, especially with like the Cowboys. Like they're like, well, we're gonna put in Zeke when he gets healthy and stuff like that. Tony Pollard did great and amazing. And if he had the backfield all to himself and it was his show, I'd be like, yeah, okay, definitely Tony Pollard for where he was. But Josh Jacobs just blew it out of the water. Just amazing. And especially the fact that he was questionable so many times. Like he's not going to play and then he just blows up. Just insane. Fantasy wide receiver of the year. So again, draft position, big game performances, and impact fantasy teams. Who gets the footy? Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, or A.J. Brown. This was hard because I didn't have any of these guys. just watch their performances from a distance. I don't know, I would say for me, surprising was CeeDee Lamb, the fact that he is on this. But also, I mean, maybe Tyreek Hill. I mean, obviously Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are both on this list. And so they are amazing. And the fact that Tua was able to keep both of them going was fantastic. So, but with Tyreek going to Miami, I didn't expect him to do as well as he did. And I think that was a huge thing. The fact that they're in the top 12, and that they, that he didn't need Patrick Mahomes to be in it. And so I think that was amazing to me. So I'll give it to Tyreek. Fantasy tight end of the year. Same thing, draft position, big game performances, and impact to fantasy teams everywhere. Who gets it? TJ Hawkinson, Taysom Hill, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, or Travis Kelce? How do you not give this to Travis Kelce? It's got to go to Travis Kelce. Like TJ Hawkinson did great, drafted late. Taysom Hill was garbage at times and then amazing at other times. George Kittle finally was like really taken off there in the second part of the season. Evan Ingram, same thing, like definitely not what you were thinking you were going to get. But how do you not take Travis Kelce? Because of the fact that the man was like 21st overall. Like picking him up, like you've got that solid tight end for like you're getting, it's almost like you're getting a top running back or a top tight end. Or, I'm sorry, a top running back or a top wide receiver over all these other guys. And so, yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible not to give this to Travis Kelce just because he was just so good. All right. Number 9, breakout player of the year. Which player was fantasy football's breakout player of the year? Devonta Smith, Tony Pollard, Kenneth Walker, Ramondre Stevenson, Trevor Lawrence, or Justin Fields? Devonta Smith, the biggest thing there is just that because last year he was terrible. Get A.J. Brown, assuming A.J. Brown's going to take all the targets, but then they both kind of like balance each other out, and Jalen Hurts is able to sustain both of them. That's a great story. Tony Pollard coming in, subbing for Zeke, and blowing up in a crazy fashion. Unbelievable. Kenneth Walker, I think it was maybe it wasn't surprising that he was going to be as good as he was because he was just getting all of the work because everybody in front of him got injured. And so, yeah, I can't really say Kenneth Walker is really going to be the breakout player. Ramondre Stevenson, most people didn't expect a running back from New England to even be on this list, to be on a running back list, to be on a really good running back list. Trevor Lawrence, second year under Doug Peterson, or first year under Doug Peterson, second year in the league. and doing amazing things, especially at the second part of the season. Justin Fields, again, after last year, kind of assuming, man, this guy may not be that good, maybe some problems, but definitely using his legs and just going crazy with his ability, especially on in the running game. But I mean, it's hard not to pick Tony Pollard just because you're behind Zeke. Zeke is a great running back, and you're like, there's no way and then just blows up. Yeah, I've got to give it to Tony Pollard in this one. All right, number 10, Rookie of the Year. Which player was Fantasy Football's Rookie of the Year? Chris Olave, Damian Pierce, Kenneth Walker, Garrett Wilson, or Breece Hall? I have to give this to Breece Hall. Here's the reason why. Breece Hall, injured early on in the season, or like midway through the season, watching what he was able to do, being like trying everything I could to literally trade away, not in this league, but in another league, trying to trade away great players for Breece Hall. I really wanted Breece Hall, and seeing how amazing he was and how great he was doing and how dominant he was on the football field. I wanted Breece Hall badly. And just everything that he had. I mean, Chris Olave, definitely a lot of room to grow. Damian Pierce needs a better team around him. Kenneth Walker, really, really well. Garrett Wilson. I mean, you've got two Jets players on this thing, but Breece Hall, I don't know if Garrett Wilson would have been as great if Breece Hall hadn't gotten injured. And so, yeah, I think Breece Hall is a fantastic. I think he deserves this Rookie of the Year because, like, once he was out, like especially in my other league, once he was out, that team floundered. I mean, really had some issues. I mean, he's still a decent team, but really had some challenges in the way of that. All right, Comeback Player of the Year. Which fantasy player amazed you with the most in their return to relevance? Saquon Barkley, Jared Goff, Evan Ingram, or Christian McCaffrey? Man, this is a toss-up between Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey. I don't think Evan Ingram and Jared Goff did such things that where he's like, okay, like, wow, that was amazing. I mean, they're great and they did really good stuff, but the fact that Christian McCaffrey was out for 2 years before this and Saquon Barkley was out for a year or two before this, it's really difficult not to give it to one of them. Obviously, because McCaffrey was on my team, I would love to give it to him. However, yeah, I'm gonna give it to him. I just have to. After 2 years of not being able to do it, like I think Christian McCaffrey definitely blew it out of the water big time, like hardcore. So yeah, give me Christian McCaffrey on that. Number 12, Steal of the Draft. Which player was the absolute best value in the 2022 draft compared to their ADP? So you have Jalen Hurts, ADP 602, quarterback 6. Joe Burrow, ADP 603, quarterback 7. Josh Jacobs, ADP 411, RB 21. Amari Cooper, ADP 609, wide receiver 31. Tyler Lockett, ADP 909, wide receiver 43. Devonta Smith, ADP 805, wide receiver 36. Travis Kelce, ADP 204, tight end 1. Yeah, I got to go Jalen Hurts here. I think Jalen Hurts. I think if I'd have kept Jalen Hurts, left Jonathan Taylor on the sideline, still picked up everybody that I did before, I think I would have been an unbeatable force in this league. I think my leagues would have been different. I know that having Hurts definitely helped. It doesn't hurt. Having Hurts definitely helped one of in my other league helped one of the managers get into the championship for sure. And the fact that Jalen Hurts helped me get to at least positive, a positive season. But that being said, yeah, like Jalen Hurts definitely, like with what he was able to do, I think it was third or fourth on the season total, but being so far back in the draft in the middle there, fantastic. I mean, Josh Jacobs is also a great candidate for this. But me personally, I've got to give, I have to give it to Jalen Hurts just because I've seen so many people with Hurts in playoffs / championships. So yeah. All right. Last thing on the docket, we are going to Andrew and Andrew sent me his picks for the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and I am also going to introduce my picks for the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and then we will just get right down to it, and I'll explain to you what we're going to do next week, and then I'll leave you to your own devices. All right. On the AFC side, we'll start there. So looking at the 5-4 matchup. So the San Diego Chargers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Andrew and I differ. Andrew believes the Jacksonville Jaguars will actually go and advance to meet Kansas City in the divisional round. I personally think it's going to be the Chargers. I think the Chargers, even though I know Justin Herbert's been crappy and Trevor Lawrence has been playing lights out, I know that Jacksonville has been playing lights out, but I think that the Chargers have, again, with Austin Eckler, with Keenan Allen, Justin finally getting into a rhythm with his, or like gotten into a rhythm with his team. And that defense is stout. And so I think the Chargers will advance to meet their divisional opponents in the Kansas City Chiefs, meet them in the divisional round. Andrew and I both have the Bengals beating the Ravens and advancing, mainly because the Ravens don't have Lamar Jackson and don't even have their second string. Is it Caleb Huntley? Tyler Huntley? Huntley, whatever his name is. And so I think the Bengals will easily mop the floor with them. Also, the Buffalo Bills taking on Miami. We both have the Buffalo Bills advancing. Again, same thing. Tua is not there. And so I just think Buffalo will be too much to handle. And so we will actually be able to see the Bills and the Bengals together going against each other. We'll actually get to see that in the divisional round. I think that'll be a fantastic game. I think Kansas City and the Chargers will be a fantastic game. Moving over to the NFC, and then I'll get back into the divisional round. Moving to the NFC. Andrew and I both have the Cowboys beating the Buccaneers. I think Tom Brady's done. I think he's ready to hang it up and get things in order to be able to probably going to come back next year. Possibly with Las Vegas, maybe with the Titans. Who knows? I don't know. And I'm just throwing that out there. But I think the Cowboys will be too much for them to handle. And so we both have the 5 seed advancing and the Cowboys going against their divisional opponents in the Philadelphia Eagles. The New York Giants against the Minnesota Vikings. We both have the Minnesota Vikings advancing. I think the New York Giants are playing really well, but it's hard not to pick against the Vikings, or hard to pick against the Vikings, even though the Vikings seem to have been dropping down and the Giants seem to have been getting better over the latter part of the season. I just can't pick against the Vikings. And then you got the divisional matchup, the San Francisco 49ers against the Seattle Seahawks. Give me San Francisco. The 49ers have just been a dominant force, like hands down, bar none, just beating the snot out of people. And so basically we have the Philadelphia Eagles going up against their division rivals and the Dallas Cowboys, and the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Hopping back over to the AFC. So in the Kansas City versus the San Diego Chargers, both of us have Kansas City advancing to the AFC Championship. Kansas City is just too much to deal with. Like, it's just such a great team, such a great offense. They may not have, they have an okay defense, but their offense is just lights out. Patrick Mahomes is playing out of his mind. That is going to be a good AFC Championship, whoever makes it. Speaking of which, the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. Andrew and I both have the Buffalo Bills advancing into the AFC Championship. I think this will be an amazing game. I'm really excited to see what happens. The line obviously is going to be very minimal, but we think that Buffalo will make it out. I think Buffalo just has been working towards this for the past couple of years, been working towards finally getting to advancing beyond where they've been stuck at. And so a repeat of the Kansas City Kansas City Buffalo AFC Championship from last year. I think it'll be, the AFC Divisional Round from last year. I think Kansas City and Buffalo will advance, or will be in the AFC Championship. Then coming back over to the NFC, we believe that the Philadelphia Eagles will handle their business against the Dallas Cowboys and will advance to the NFC Championship. And we also believe that San Francisco will handle its business against the Minnesota Vikings and will advance to the NFC Championship. So we have the 1, the 1 and 2 against each other in the AFC and the NFC championships. Then in the AFC Championship, we have the Buffalo Bills advancing to the Super Bowl to meet the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl. I think Buffalo is again a team of destiny. The Bengals are a great team. The Chiefs are a great team. I mean, the AFC is just stacked with talent. I think that the Bills will finally win their thing. I think it'll be a beautiful thing. They are playing that game. If it is Kansas City and Buffalo, they will be playing it in Atlanta. I think both of them will have it'll be an amazing game, but I think Buffalo takes it because it just seems like Buffalo is that complete team. On the NFC side, it is hard to pick against the 49ers because the 49ers have been dominant, and it's really difficult, but I think Jalen Hurts just lights things up and will take the Eagles into the Super Bowl. Where Andrew and I differ, besides the first round of the playoffs, we also differ in the victor of the Super Bowl. Andrew has chosen Philadelphia to be the victors in this year's Super Bowl. I think that's because he's got a heart for Jalen Hurts. I think it's because he's had him on his team and he's been super happy about having him on his fantasy team. And it could also be the reason why I am picking the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl because I had Josh Allen on my team in another league. And so I think having Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, I think has swayed us. The other thing too is I just don't think there's any team in the NFC that can match up against the top teams in the NFC. Or I'm sorry. I don't think there's any team in the NFC that can match up against the top teams in the AFC. I think the AFC will just dominate and rock and roll. And whoever, whether it's the Bengals or the Chiefs or the Bills, whoever from the AFC makes it in the Super Bowl, they're taking it. I think the AFC is taking it this year and for the next few years. So yeah. Join me next week. Next week, I'll have Andrew along with me. We're going to talk about the best and worst drafted picks from our fantasy league, the best and worst trades, the best ads, the worst drops, and we're going to look at the ADP and final rankings, the preseason ADP and the final rankings of some of the top players in the NFL. With that, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening. If you are watching on your YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, click the subscribe button, click the bell. That way you're notified. Give us a like and then leave us a comment in the section below. Who either do you use all your waiver money, or who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl? Who you got picks there? Who you think is going to be in it, and who do you think is going to win it? If you're listening on your favorite podcasting app, click the subscribe button. Leave us a 5-star review. Let us know who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. Without any further ado, I'm Nick, and as always, you have an open invitation to our conversation. Bye-bye!